Hello and welcome to the CRM MVP podcast. My name is Lisa Crosbie. I will be your host for this episode. I introduced myself on a previous episode. Gus kindly let me host episode 83, where I talked about my experience of becoming an MVP and my journey into that. If you'd like to have a proper introduction to me, please go back and have a listen to that one. For now, hello from Australia, which is where I live. Hope you're all keeping well. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about sales insights. So we're going to get into some detail with the technology here. This is the piece of the platform that allows you to do intelligent CRM. Now, I know we don't, it's called the CRM MVP podcast, so we still use the word CRM around here. I know we don't use CRM in relation to Dynamics 365 anymore, but in my mind, that's what I like to call this intelligent CRM. So what we're looking at here, Dynamics 365 Sales is the product that we all know and love as the CRM functionality. Dynamics 365 Sales Insights is an add-on license. Now, I don't want to get too bogged down in this licensing discussion in the podcast here. I really want to focus on telling you all about the awesome technology and making sure that this is something that more people know about. But it is an add-on license to Dynamics 365 Sales. You do need a license for every user who consumes it. It's not just a one-off for the administrator. But one of the things I want to point out here is that a heap of functionality has been added to what you get for this license in the last 12 months or so. So this is July 2020 that I'm recording this. The Sales Insights license has existed for quite a long time, but more new functionality is being added, especially in the last, probably in 2020 towards the end of 2019. So if you've looked at this a while ago and haven't looked at it for a while, I'd encourage you to have a look at it. If you're brand new to it, I really hope this helps you out. So as a core concept, I'm just going to kind of go through, an overview of what it is and why I think it's valuable and why I'm asking you to spend, maybe 45 minutes of your life listening to what I have to say about this. And then I'm going to take one of my favorite ways that Gus runs this podcast and do a top 10 in reverse order of my favorite features as a way of kind of structuring something up here to take you through the features. If you've seen any of my other work about Sales Insights, you might be able to guess at the top couple, but you know what? Let's build the suspense here. All right. So the concept of Sales Insights is that, as I said, it's an add-on license for Dynamics 365 Sales. You are bringing a heap of intelligence. So this is a core thing we see with this platform is, across the whole Power Platform and the whole of Dynamics 365 is that there is a heap of intelligence going on in, Azure and the cloud underneath. And this trend towards leveraging that artificial intelligence is something we've seen in recent release waves. Certainly that's a big picture strategy as I see it of what we're getting with business applications. Is this idea that you don't have to be an expert in AI to be able to benefit from AI. So what we see with Sales Insights is effectively the ability to light up a bunch of features that provide AI into your sales experience. Now, that doesn't mean that it's doing the job of a seller. Even in recent stuff I've seen released from Microsoft around skills and jobs that are in high demand. Certainly people who are good at sales are absolutely in high demand, but this makes them, this adds to their capability, if you like to think of it that way. So what you're getting is, the salespeople are building relationships, working with people, but leveraging AI means they can be more proactive. And what you're aiming for here is the best of having, what the seller can bring with their personal relationships and the AI to be kind of looking at that data and suggesting to them what leads are likely to convert so that they can spend the most time on them, which opportunities are they most likely to win, what's the next best action, suggested action that you should take with a customer, how's the health of your relationship with this opportunity, with this customer, all of those kinds of things. So, lots of things going on here where beyond, what the salesperson might see day to day, to be able to leverage AI as, an extra thing and enable those salespeople to become proactive, to kind of be a step ahead of customer needs, to really differentiate themselves and for an organization to really be able to differentiate itself on that kind of superior attention to those kinds of things. So that's the value of Sales Insights. So what I will do is take you through my top 10, which is really actually quite a nice summary of not every single thing you can do, but most of what you can do, as a way of introducing you to all of the bits and pieces that you get when you're working with this. All right, so here we go. Number 10. Now I am doing this in reverse order. I think probably in the middle there it gets a bit shaky as to which ones are more important than others, but go with me here. In rough order of importance, here's where we're going. So without further ado, number 10. Number 10 I am putting up as a feature called Talking Points. Now, Talking Points is about displaying information to you when you're looking at the customer that will give you things you might have chatted to with that customer before, along the lines of sports, vacation, family, entertainment, those kinds of things. Now, I should also point out what happens is when you buy Sales Insights, or when you deploy that solution, you actually get a bunch of extra things added to your environment, including extra forms, extra views and things that light up all of these features. So on the contact record, on the account record, lead and opportunity, you get new forms. So where I'm talking about these things, and Talking Points is one of them, they appear on those new forms. So you imagine the standard contact form that you're looking at in Dynamics 365 Sales. You've got the standard relationship assistant card, so you still get that standard feature with Dynamics 365 Sales. But all of these things that I'm going through now, including Talking Points, which is my number 10, appear sort of in that right, like by default in that right-hand column, sort of becomes a place where you've got a heap of things. So imagine you've got a box there sitting above the relationship assistant that pops up and says, Edna mentioned this particular sport 3 months ago, or mentioned this particular entertainment. So it's picking up on sort of, words in your correspondence, in your emails and things, and flagging those. Now, I think this is a super cool feature, but it's in my experience so far, and I'm sure there's more going on behind the scenes here, it's relatively limited in what it can pick up, but it's quite a nice little thing to have to highlight there. So when you're talking to your customers, you can get that information. Number 9 is a feature called Who Knows Whom. Now, I'm going to hedge a little bit here because, as I said at the start, I'm in Australia. We actually don't have this feature live in Australia, so I've seen demos of it, but I haven't actually got to put it through its paces in a real situation here yet. It's coming to our part of the world in September. Those of you lucky enough to be in North America will already have access to this one, and I may well uprank this one when I get to play with it, but for now it's sitting at number 9. So Who Knows Whom is about giving you details of the network of people in your organization that particular contact is interacting with. So we've got LinkedIn as a way of being able to see, one of the ways of knowing who that person knows. But LinkedIn connections can be, not particularly strong connections. Like, I can be first degree connected to someone I've worked with for 10 years, and I can also be first degree connected with someone who messaged me and said, hey, enjoyed listening to you on the podcast, which I will always connect with people who do that. So if someone was looking at a LinkedIn connection, there's not an easy way of seeing the strength of that connection. So what we're getting with Who Knows Whom is something that is designed to give you those stronger connections, and actually the degree of connectivity, I suppose, with that person. So this one is available on both the contact and the lead. And the idea here is that you are using the relationship data here is based on sort of communication and collaboration patterns that are going on with Exchange. So one of the other things I really want to highlight here with Sales Insights, to get the most out of this, you really need to be using it with Office 365, Outlook, Exchange, right? I think even with a lot of the stuff with Dynamics CRM, enormous benefit in having these platforms work together, but especially when it comes to AI, and especially when it comes to the relationship things. And there's another one coming up a little bit further in my list. So when you've got all that data in the one place together, you are actually able to get genuine insight and genuine value out of what's going on with the relationships. If you've got your email somewhere else, you're really not going to get the benefit as well as you could out of that. So assuming that we've got all of that on the same platform here, that you're using a Microsoft Exchange for your email, then what's going on is that it's actually connecting, it's looking at the relationships and the interactions and the communication between that lead or contact and other users within your Microsoft Exchange. So that's giving me a genuine connection. If I'm looking at a lead and it will come up and it can see, oh, my colleague here has had correspondence with that person, and it actually gives you like a little sort of temperature bar. It sort of goes, green, orange, red, with a strength of how strong the relationship is with that person. So it becomes actually very easy to say, oh, I can see that my colleague David there has got a very strong relationship with that person. I'm going to ask for an introduction, or I'm going to, make that connection there. And you're actually genuinely able to, as I said, see who in your organization is connected to that person, how strong that connection is, which is going a level, quite substantially further than what you're getting by just seeing that someone's connected on LinkedIn, which, as I said, could be super strong connection or just a passing connection. So that's a feature called Who Knows Whom. Number 9 on my list, could go higher, depending on what I get to do when I get a chance to play with it. All right, so number 8 on my list is a feature called Notes Analysis. Now, Notes Analysis starts to get into things that feel a little bit magic to me. I know it's not magic, but there's still something quite awesome about the system instantly interpreting something from what you've just live typed, and it turns it into something. So what you're getting with the Notes Analysis is something that is providing intelligent suggestions out of what you've typed. So what it can do is give you suggestions for actions based on different activities. So if you create an appointment or an email or a phone call, task note, works on custom activities as well, then what the Notes Analysis is doing is going in and analyzing that and giving you intelligent suggestions. So for instance, if you type in something like, I just met with Edna, she's my favorite example customer today. I just met with Edna to discuss the chatbot, or we should meet further or whatever. It will actually come out and give me an automatic suggestion to say you should create an appointment. So if I've put in something like we should meet next week, it will actually come up with that suggestion, and then I can click on the button. It will automatically add the appointment activity, and it will pre-populate it with the things that it's extracted from the note. So for me, this is one of these things, as I said, it feels a little bit like magic, but it's actually sort of, genuinely helping you out there with, as you're creating activities to create actions and things to do. And I think for me, as someone who, I could be much better with creating to-do lists and things like that, the fact that the system would auto-suggest and help me with those things is an immensely appealing way to use AI, quite frankly. And at number 7, I'm going to talk to you about a feature called Auto Capture. Now, one of the things I should explain here is that there are some Sales Insights features which are considered free. Now, by free, you get them in the Dynamics 365 standard license. You're not paying extra for the Sales Insights license for some of these. So the 3 things that you're getting there, one of them is the email engagement, which is the part that allows you to see who's read or opened your email and opened attachments if you're sending emails out from Dynamics 365. And then the other 2 features that are free sort of have a free version and a premium version. So one of them is the Assistant Studio, so assistant cards that pop up that say things like task is overdue, opportunity is approaching a close date. That has both a standard and a premium capability. I'm going to talk about that one again later. So for now, auto capture. One of the things we've got here is the free version. So the free version, or the version you get with standard Dynamics 365, is the part that you will have seen, and you've probably seen this has been there for a long time now. You might have seen this without knowing what it's called. When you look in the timeline, you can actually see see suggestions that say untracked email from Mary Phillips or whatever. And so you can kind of look in the contact record or the account record or whatever and just click the little track button on the side. So that's the standard auto capture feature that's going through and picking up those things and sort of positioning them inside the timeline for you. So one of the reasons I love auto capture is because it really starts to bring together that wonderful experience of using Dynamics 365 and Outlook together. It's getting that data from Exchange. It's able to suggest that for you. So you don't even have to be living in your email. You don't have to be remembering to track stuff from your email. You can actually just be inside Dynamics and see those things popping up as untracked email and just click a button and go, thank you, Dynamics. Yes, thank you, auto capture. I do want to track that activity, and I don't need to remember to go and do it. But the reason this one is at number 7 is not actually just because of that. It's because of the premium auto capture functionality. So premium auto capture does something very similar to what we're just talking about, which is managing activity suggestions, but it's a bit more. It's a better looking interface and it's a bit more sophisticated. What it will do is actually pop up a little kind of blue icon at the top of your timeline, little blue light bulb icon that says activity suggestions. And what that's doing is, again, going through and accessing your Outlook data, your email, your calendar, contacts, those kinds of things, and actually then popping those up on the timeline. So what you end up with is activity suggestions that are like, Mary Johnson sent an email or whatever, and you can go into that. So instead of just having the standard track button, which is what you get with the standard thing, you actually get options there to say, yes, I want to add it. You can actually click through to sort of edit the record, or you can remove it, and then it gets added as an activity to the timeline of that. So it's a very similar functionality, but it's going kind of a level up. But the thing that's really exciting about the premium functionality is that you're getting another thing which is brand new, which is called contact suggestions. So what that does is actually creates a grid of contact suggestions that you can go and have a look at. So this appears when you've got Dynamics 365 Sales Insights deployed. You'll notice some extra options popping up on that left-hand navigation menu of your sales application. And so then one of the things that you're getting there is something that is called contact suggestions. So what that is doing is giving you contacts. It's a suggested list of, hey, I've been looking at your communications. So things like your emails, the to, the from, it's looking at the signature and things like that, and actually saying, hey, I think you should create these contacts. So this is super cool if, this is helping with that problem where you're not keeping up with your data entry. Maybe you're getting emails from new people and you haven't added them in there. It's actually giving you a list, and you can go through and click through and see stuff that's kind of filled in, where it's able to do it. It's picking up the company name, the email, and giving you a suggestion then. So you can just kind of work through that list and go, yes, thank you, save that. Or you can go in and edit and add additional information or delete it entirely. So I said at the start, one of the things with Sales Insights is allowing salespeople to become more proactive, to be ahead of the game. But there's also quite a lot going on with this functionality that is also about reducing manual data entry. So the previous one that I just talked about with the notes analysis is a way of saving you some data entry. This one as well, that idea that it's going through and offering suggestions of contacts and kind of pre-filling those contacts for you, so you can say, yeah, thanks, I'll have that, or just going in and editing and adding the final bits of information you need instead of having to go through that whole process of adding contacts. That's super cool. And, from an organization point of view, you're far more likely to end up with all of your contacts in the system rather than, relying on people to actually go in and create them. So really awesome feature there, I think, with that premium auto capture, and genuinely think that that's a really valuable one. My number 6 feature is something called conversation intelligence. Now, I've put this one kind of deliberately at position number 6, sort of sitting in the middle. I feel it's not the top of my list and it's not the bottom of my list, so it kind of fits this nice spot. I think this is super cool functionality, and I think it would have a really good use case in some situations. But I actually think we're starting to see this technology also available in the customer service side of things, and I just feel like I'm more excited about it on the customer service side than I am on the sales side. Having said that, if you're in an inside sales situation, telesales situation, I think this is probably something that would hold a lot of value. So I wanted to make sure I sort of put it in the list there somewhere along the line. So conversation intelligence sort of exists as it's a bit of a separate app. You're navigating to a different URL to look at it, and it has that feel of like a dashboard that's giving you sentiment, the positive, neutral, negative sentiment of what's going on with your conversations. Effectively, this is something that is listening to conversations. So you've got it integrated with your, telephony, and it's actually able to kind of give you that analysis of the overall customer sentiment, the sentiment by seller. You can also get things, insights into the different sellers, what their talking speed is. I hope no one's measuring me on that. How long they pause before they're speaking, the monologue, all those kinds of things. So if you're working in an environment where you were in that inside sales, those kinds of things and that sort of stuff mattered, I think this is a really awesome tool. So I wanted to give it a mention there. It's probably just not one that I've come up with, as much as the others. So anyway, there you go. Conversation intelligence starts to be able to do some clever things. I think the fact that it can actually it can actually recognize sentiment from the conversations is pretty awesome. And if you were really sort of measuring that kind of thing, I think this would give you huge amount of value. So that's my number 6 feature. There is conversation intelligence. All right, now we're getting into the top 5, and honestly, where I said at the start, I wasn't entirely sure about my, order. This is pretty solid, I think. For me, the top 5 are absolutely the top 5. So, and in fact, I'm going to get a bit of a 2-for-1 in here at number 4 as well. So you're getting a lot of value out of me here. So number 5 is relationship health. Now, this works across a whole bunch of features in the system. As I said, with Sales Insights, you get a lot of things added in. So you're getting extra views and extra forms added to lead, contact, account, opportunity, and relationship health just lights up everywhere. So this is a thing that is actually kind of measuring the interaction that you're having with your customers, and is able to tell you the health of the relationship and also the trend of that health. Is it steady, declining? Probably should have started with declining, steady, improving, those kinds of things. So you're actually getting something there that's giving you that insight on those things. Now you can, I think this is only fairly recently that you can do this, but you're also able to actually configure this a little bit. So one of the things that it is doing with relationship analytics is going through and keeping track of, how are things going with that customer? What's the activity history with that customer? So you can go in and see on that customer record a lovely, dashboard that's pre-configured. You get this timeline along the bottom that's showing you the interactions, like in little bar charts. So really, really good visuals here that make it really easy to just jump straight in and go, wow, we had a flurry of activity with them, back in that month, and then there's been nothing for ages. So if you're aiming to maintain regular contact with a customer, it becomes really easy to see that. It's also measuring things like, exactly, your emails, your phone calls, your meetings, both initiated by you, initiated by them. You can see who in your organization is interacting with the person. So what you end up with is this awesome kind of dashboard, snapshot of the state of the activity with that customer, graphs, KPIs, interaction history, all of those kinds of things. Even response times in there, what's your response, what's their response, maybe you're getting back to them quickly and they're always taking a week to get back to you, and maybe that gives you some insight on what's going on there. You also get a nice little card, in the top of that shows you what's the next interaction, what's the date and time for the next activity that's scheduled, and the last interaction, and then that overall sort of trend and health with the relationship there. So then that card can also appear on the main form. The other thing is then you see that sort of relationship health, trend on the views as well. So you can actually get access to that, in detail when you're in a record, that beautiful dashboard that gives you the really good visual on what's going on, but also just on a view if you're looking, sort of browsing through all your leads or searching your leads or browsing through your contacts or whatever, you can see that kind of relationship trend, and it's a really nice, visual on the view as well. That makes it very easy to kind of, as you're working with those views, to pick out things that might be things that need attention. So again, that concept of proactive. I'm a salesperson, I'm looking at this stuff and it's drawing my attention in with really nice visuals about what's going on. Now, there is another little feature that's kind of pre-release that's snuck in here just recently, and this might, if I was recording this a bit further down the track, even bump relationship analytics up a little bit, which is the concept of relationship analytics with similar opportunities. So this is just a preview feature. I guess one of the other things to say here is that in the Wave 2 release notes of things that are coming, it's clear there's more development going on in this area. So, I think if you're starting to work in this space, I said up front, there's a lot that's been added to this in the last year, but this is not sort of like brand new shiny toys that are going away. This to me is a deep investment in this kind of idea of bringing AI to the sales process. So I think we're going to see constant, new things and improvements on how these things work, and extra cool stuff being added. Just the direction that I'm seeing, past and what's indicated in the new release wave there, certainly. So this is something that's just been added, which is about sort of looking at similar opportunities. So, one of the things we see across AI in the platform is this ability for the AI to surface up similar things, which can sort of say, well, actually, what's working better for a deal? Let's have a look at the relationship analytics on a similar deal, and what's going on there. Is there one there that's actually going better? What kind of interactions are we having that are working there? So again, that idea of using the data that you've got in the organization to help you improve your sales and gain that insight into what's going on. So I haven't had a chance to play with that one much yet, but just to give you an idea of how that technology is progressing and fleshing out. And I think we're going to be seeing more on that. All right, number 4. Now, this is a bit of a 2-for-1 because honestly, it felt like a bit of a cheat to have these as 2 separate numbers. And also, like I said, you're getting more bang for your buck here. Number 4 is predictive opportunity scoring and predictive lead scoring. Now, these are not the same thing, but kind of a very, very similar concept, which is why I wanted to group them together. So let me start with the lead scoring, just because it makes sense to talk through lead and then opportunity, but the concept here is the same, which is that what you're doing is helping the seller to focus their efforts on the things that are the leads that are most likely to convert, most likely to be qualified, and then in the opportunity side, prioritize the effort on opportunities that are most likely to close. Now, the thing you can do here is use a standard AI model. So it comes out of the box with a bunch of fields already pre-configured that are the most just most commonly leading to, what's likely to make a lead qualify and what's likely to make an opportunity close. However, you can actually go in and edit those fields. You can go into the Sales Insights admin part. You can go in and say, actually, I want to select, and not just from that entity, but from related entities. So for instance, I can go in to configure my lead scoring model and say, do you know what, untick created on, because I don't care about that. But what I really want is the industry of the related account, or the created on of the related account, or whatever. So even just when you look at something like the lead scoring model, when you look at the fields you can choose to most influence the prediction there, it sort of says like 736 fields. When I first looked at it, I'm like, I'm pretty sure there's not 736 fields on a lead, or else I've really missed something. But what it's doing is bringing in basically all the fields for a lead of related accounts and contacts. Similarly with opportunities, you can go in and choose your fields for how you want that score to work. So what ends up happening now, bear in mind, if you do work with these AI models and you go in and configure them, you need a bit of lead time. It's a few hours. I think it's like 4 to 6 hours before the thing will properly kind of, the engine works in the background. So don't expect to kind of just, switch this on and bang, it's done. Has to do a little bit of work in the back end. And really you'd be configuring that once the first time and probably, monitoring and improving on it, but you wouldn't be tweaking it every day. Like you'd go in and have a look. So from the front end of things, I'll talk you through what it looks like from the user point of view, and then what you get from the admin kind of, setup point of view. So from the front end user point of view, again, this is lit up across your views and across your forms. So what you see, for instance, is I can go into something and see my open leads scored. Same concept with opportunities, my open opportunities scored. And on that view, I have a lead score. So that's a number sort of between, I'm going to say between 1 and 100. It might be 0 to 99, but you get the idea. So it actually gives you a whole number. And then you also get the lead score trend or the opportunity score trend. So that idea of what's the score, and then is the trend, is it improving? Is it steady? Is it declining? So, you could go in straight away then and go, oh, I've got a score that's 60, but it's improving, and that's looking good. And then it will actually grade those based on an A, B, C, D categorization, which also has a lovely little kind of color visual on it. So I can look at a list, I can see numbers, I can sort in terms of my highest or lowest lead scores, but I can also very quickly, when I'm looking at that list, see, nice green kind of circle there if it's an A grade lead. I can see a red dot if it's a D grade, and so on. And that makes it really easy for me to work with it. And then what happens is if you go into the lead or opportunity itself, it will give you information about why that's the case. So you're starting to see the information about what's going on. So if I go through into, say, an opportunity, and I'm looking at that particular opportunity, I'll get something that says, for instance, like this is a score of 58. It's grade B and improving. Lovely little purple color scheme there to give me a nice kind of, it's not hot or cold, it's somewhere in the middle. And then it lists the top reasons. So it actually starts to pull out those fields that are the most influential and tell me why. The estimated revenue is medium to low. The pipeline phase is to develop. The created on date is whatever it is. So as I said, you can start by switching these things on and just running the models as they are out of the box. But then from the admin side, you've got that ability to go in and configure and say, for either leads or opportunities here, how do I want to set that up? And from the admin side, when you're looking at it, it actually gives you the ability to select the fields, but also then it will say, 20% of your leads will be in category A or category B or C or whatever. So you can sort of see if you're getting the model right there. If you've got a model where every single lead or every single opportunity is a category A, well, either your business is just doing exceptionally well, more likely you haven't got your model right. So there we go, lead and opportunity scoring there. Plenty of beautiful. One of the things I love about this is just how clear the kind of the UI elements are. Nice little arrows that go up and down in the views, little color coded for the A, B, C, D. When I go in as a user, it tells me exactly why. And there's also a little kind of feedback button that I can click to give feedback and actually say, do you know what, I would have expected the score to be different, and I can put in that score and I can put in another comment and pass that feedback through. So that's also kind of reassuring there. So that is lead and opportunity score, which strictly speaking is 2 features, and they are both today my number 4 feature. All right, we're getting to the pointy end of things now. Here we go, the final 3. Number 3, I'm going to talk to you about premium forecasting. Now, we have forecasting in Dynamics 365. That's only been added relatively recently. Super awesome to have that feature in there, but it's a bit of a sort of there's some cool stuff going there, but having forecasting in the system is one of those things where, it's stopping people exporting to Excel. Ticks a box of, yes, thank you, forecasting is in there. Great. But once you start to get into bringing these premium features in, this starts to get super, super valuable, because you're doing things to use AI now to help forecast what's going on. And certainly, in terms of a sales organization, being able to forecast accurately, being able to get, the benefit of AI to forecast what might be happening in your business rather than, hours and hours of number crunching in Excel and so on. There's some really, really awesome benefits to be had here. So you're getting a few things with the premium. So this is called premium forecasting. And as I said, this is the sales insights part that's an add-on to the standard forecasting feature in this premium license. And this is one of the things I said early on, there's been a lot of stuff added into the product. So, the sales insights license didn't used to have this in it, and now it does. So, you're getting all of that other stuff, and you're getting stuff that's been there for a while, but just there's a real kind of trend here of fleshing out additional functionality. And so suddenly the value of that license really goes up. And I think, to be honest, being able to predict your forecast using AI is something, it's near the top of my list, because I think it's something that's it's likely to be useful pretty much everywhere. So here's what you're getting when you're looking at that kind of, predictive forecasting featured. One of them is actually just that you'll get a prediction column. So you'll get an extra column in your forecast, and it's taking the data and actually kind of working out what it thinks the predictive forecast will be. So it's actually doing that prediction for you. With any of these AI models, you have to have enough data in the system already. It takes a couple of hours to spin up in the back end, but then once you're good to go, you're good to go. And it's actually kind of going through and using that information to predict the forecasts for you. One of the other things you're getting there is a thing called snapshots. So snapshots allows you to freeze your forecast at a particular moment in time. So I think this is great, because if the sellers are going in and changing the values or doing things, which happens, this is actually allowing you to go back and see what changed. So you can actually sort of go in and say, let's take a snapshot of this and kind of then analyze what's happened in between times. And the other thing that's related to that is this visual representation, which is like a flow chart. So you're getting something that's, again, super cool visual going on here, where you can see how a forecast has changed between one time and the next time, and actually kind of go between those two snapshots and have a look at what's changed there. So imagine you're a sales manager trying to work on the forecast, and you've submitted your forecast up, and you've said, yeah, here's where it's going to be, and then you come back the next week or the next month and it's changed substantially. This is actually allowing you to kind of view the flow summary of what's gone on there, where things have moved around, to take a snapshot at a particular time and actually get a much better idea of what's changing, perhaps where there might be some challenges or issues or those kinds of things. You also get a trend chart in there, so you can see how your forecast amount is trending over time. So not the same as sort of the snapshot comparison, but also just that ability to kind of see that alongside those predictions. So a lot of stuff there in that advanced forecasting feature that is giving you more than just, oh, now I don't have to stick this in Excel. Well, not only do you not have to stick it in Excel, you don't have to do all that kind of number crunching. The ability to save snapshots instead of having to go, I'm going to export to Excel and save that as an Excel spreadsheet so that I've got a record of it, and then I bring the next one over. And this is actually starting to genuinely be able to use some clever things that people want with forecasting there. So I would encourage you to have a look at that if you haven't already. I think the value of bringing AI and prediction models into this, and of course then you can kind of we talked about predictive opportunity scoring in the previous one. You could actually use these two features. So I'm talking about these as a top 10 as individual features, but of course these things can all kind of interact with each other, and you can have all these things firing. So the idea of predictive opportunity scoring is also relevant in terms of what you're doing with forecasting and so on. So even in looking at those forecasts, you've got that kind of information available to you as well, and you can get in and see what's going on. So lots to love there. All right, now if you've listened to any of other podcasts or things I've been doing recently, you may or may not be surprised by my top 2 here, but here we go. Number 2 is Sales Accelerator. The Sales Accelerator is actually like a whole extra piece that's been added into Dynamics 365 as a functionality that we can use. And this is something that is designed for sort of inside sales, high velocity sales, those kinds of things. So the idea here is that this is actually using AI to surface up to the seller who is the next best customer that you should call. So you end up with a work list down the left-hand side that goes through and says, you should call John, and then you should call Mary. Mary's been busy in this podcast, hasn't she? So we've got all of those, customer suggestions, but it's actually using AI to suggest those next best customers. And then you've also got a series of sequenced events. So you can configure this. You're going in and saying, this is the next best action for that customer. You should send them a welcome email. You should make a phone call. You should send this templated email. So you're actually starting to get something that's very efficient in terms of productivity. It's designed for that sort of, inside sales scenario, but, I'd be interested in seeing as this progresses kind of, where it can be used and so on, because the idea of those things popping up, and again, once you've got this license, you can take advantage of any of these things that are in there because you've got all of these things, right? So the idea of next best customer suggestions coming up, next best action suggestions coming up in the context of that. So it's really designed for that sort of that high volume, inside sales, perhaps low relationship selling, that kind of thing. So if you're in that kind of environment, this is a major kind of capability that we've got as an option with inside Dynamics 365 now. And the other thing we're going to see coming through here is again more AI pumping into this. So again, that trend of just more and more coming in this area, that ability to say one of the things that we're going to see later in 2020 is things coming through like an automated lead distribution engine. So if you're a sales manager and you're working with hundreds or thousands of leads and you're having to manually assign them to different salespeople all the time, again, using AI to kind of route those things correctly to the right seller, it's going to save you a heap of time. So on this, AI as a time saver is a massive advantage there. All right. Are you ready? I'm ready. I'm going to talk about my absolute favorite thing, which is the assistant. Did you guess? So the assistant, as I referred to earlier, now if you're paying attention, I did say I was going to refer to this one, so you might have been waiting for it. I've also done a fair amount. I've got on my YouTube channel and blogs. I've done some things with the assistant. So if you're interested in knowing more about this, you'll find my work out there and some examples of things that tutorials and things that I can take you through to do this. So the assistant comes in 2 flavors. It comes in the standard variety, which you you get with Dynamics 365 Sales. So you've probably seen that. If you've used Dynamics 365, you'll see the card pops up. Things like, opportunity close date has passed. Things like you've got a task due today or whatever. So the idea here is that it's giving you that kind of insight. It used to be called the relationship assistant. It's now just called the assistant, and it pops up those things and gives you those things. Now, that's cool, but the part that I genuinely enjoy working with and that I think is awesome is the premium capabilities here that you get with Sales Insights. So what you can do with this is configure your own cards. So you can set up your own cards to be triggered inside the system. Now, the thing here is that you're actually using Flow. So the magic of this is you think of anything you can do with Flow, anything you can do in terms of an external trigger, for instance, anything you can do with conditional branching, all of those kinds of things that are available to you in Flow. And I'm not going to try and give you a podcast Flow lesson here, but just, the full benefit of building flows in Power Automate here is available to you. So what happens is the creating your own assistant cards is an action inside a flow. So what happens is you go behind the scenes in Sales Insights, you say create a new card for the assistant. It's in an interface called the Assistant Studio, and the first thing that does is launches a Power Automate window and says create a new card, create a new flow, and then you have all of that available to you. What's my trigger? So my trigger might be a new person is added to Dynamics. It might be an opportunity is updated. It could be a timer, do this once a week. It could be, a manual trigger. It could be an external system trigger, something's added, a new order is added to the ERP system or whatever it is. So you've got the advantage of anything you can do in terms of those triggers from external systems as well as inside Dynamics 365. And then you can configure out what you want and you end up with an action card, which is called Create Card for Assistant. And what you can do with that is create a card that does a number of things. So one of them is to open an entity record in the system. So the idea here is you end up with these cards appearing on your dashboard, and they are effectively you need to think of these as next best action cards. So heaps of conversations I have with customers and people interested in Dynamics 365, the idea of next best actions is just so core to being able to get, really productive, effective kind of sales results. So this is what enables you to do it. And the reason I love this is because you can configure it for yourself. So you're getting a bunch of out-of-the-box things. You can choose to turn them on or off and prioritize them. So in terms of the out-of-the-box things, there's a bunch of them that come standardly with Dynamics 365 Sales, but there's also a heap of additional premium cards that you're getting with the premium functionality here. So you're getting more standard cards, if you like, additional cards on top of what you're getting with the standard thing. And one of those, which I'm actually most excited about, is one that notifies you when a contact has changed their LinkedIn company. How cool is that? So that's one of the premium cards you get. There's a bunch of them in there as well that you get. So back to configuring your own cards. You end up with a card where you're creating an action. So one of the actions is to just open a record in the system. So imagine you're on the dashboard and it says, it's Lisa's birthday today or whatever. Open the record and you can go through to that record and see what that is. It could be something like this opportunity. There's an inconsistency here between the close date and the stage of the opportunity, and you click the button to open opportunity. But again, you can configure what the standards should be for providing the seller with a next best action to say, hey, go check out and fix up this opportunity because there's something inconsistent going on there. You can also use it to open an external URL. So it could be like a content suggestion, an insight card that says next best action is to refer them to a website, or for a seller, next best action is to review a certain policy document or read something. So you could actually be providing the seller with information for them or information they should be referring on to the customer. So you can actually have something in there that goes out to a URL. You can have a button that launches a playbook. So playbooks is probably a fairly underutilized functionality, allows you to kind of set up a series of actions and things that get triggered under certain circumstances. So things like the decision maker has left, you should contact them within 2 days, you should update the decision maker, you should, whatever it else is you should. So you can have kind of like a process of steps that you should do when that happens. And again, you can have a card in the assistant that pops up to say, hey, this opportunity is at risk. This is a high value opportunity at risk. You need to launch a playbook to take action on that. So there you can start to playing off some of the other features. And the other thing that's great about the assistant card is that you can pick up on so many of these other things here. So for instance, the relationship health is declining, or the predictive opportunity score is above a certain amount, or, the value of the relationship is declining, and the opportunity value is over $1 million or something like that. Launch a playbook, do something about it. So you can start to bring together all of those pieces in the card. You've also got the ability to launch a custom action, like a CRM custom action. So if you've got those built in the system, you can use those to trigger. And the other thing you can do with it is to invoke a REST API. So if you've got other flows, sort of like child flows or flows built using the HTTP trigger, if you want to ping, use an API, REST API to an external system, you've got that ability as well. So the card can actually have a button that will trigger REST API, and you can build what you want there. So I think the reason I put this at number one is just because there is just infinitely many things that you can do with it, and it is absolutely fully configurable to work with all of the power that you get with Power Automate and flows. You can have interaction there. The cards always end up in Dynamics, but the triggers could be coming from external systems. They can be coming from other parts of Sales Insights, and it means that the value of that idea of suggesting a next best action to the seller in the context of Dynamics, like in that system where they're working, not sending them a notification somewhere else, not sending them an email somewhere else, but this idea of having those insights sitting on their dashboard, sitting on those records, next best actions, suggestions for engagement, for taking action on playbooks, for cleaning up data, for all of those kinds of things. There's just a heap of value in there, as well as all of those standard and premium cards that you're getting that you can just switch on and off. You can also go behind the scenes and see how the cards are being used. So users can give them a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and as an admin you can go in and see, you can rank them, you can prioritize them, you can apply them to certain security roles, and you can also see, how often is this card being surfaced, how often is it being clicked on, what's the thumbs up, thumbs down. So quite a good bit of detail in the back end there for the administrator as well. All right, so there you have it. That's why I love Sales Insights. I hope there's been something in there that's encouraged you to perhaps get in and learn more about this. I think this is something that's been a relatively rapid development, but working with AI in the CRM space is absolutely kind of a future state. Some of the things here are relatively new, but this is stuff that we need to be across, and I think it's a trend that we're going to be seeing more of. Plus, it's really fun to play with, and some of these things just seem like magic, so why not, hey? All right, thank you very much for listening. You will find me on Twitter at Lisa M. Crosbie. Please connect with me on LinkedIn as well. Just pop a note there to say that you've heard me here. I also do a regular podcast with Megan Walker called The Up Podcast, and if you've got any feedback on this episode, please contact us at crmmvppodcast.com. And thanks again, Gus, for having me to host an episode.